when you start tormenting the Museveni family and you start staging demonstrations in the UK that are not even witch hunting Museveni himself, not his son Muhoozi and Rugaba, who now has a basement, like you say, but you also want to extend your hatred through the first Museveni generation, the Muhoozi and Rugaba generation, now to go to the Ruhamia generation. All right, welcome to the SML News. I do not want to say number one, but one of your leading online media platforms in Uganda. Broadcasting from the heart of Kampala, now at Makerere University Guest House, where I normally meet over the weekends to hang around and reflect first on the time I spent in Makerere University and the knowledge I acquired, but also on so many things that you need to think about in a serene environment like this one. And so, to those of you who are in Uganda, our brothers and sisters in the diaspora, the United Kingdom and the United States of America, and some in the United Arab Emirates, I send you warm greetings from our country, Uganda. I must say I'm happy. Every time I read your comments, I observe a number of likes. You know, YouTube gives you statistics of how many people have shared this story or the other. I am encouraged that I'm doing the right thing. Of course, there are a few voices of dissent, but that's natural. There is no single person who has done something in the history of the world and got 100% applause, 100% approval of what they are doing. I want to welcome you to this special edition of my special notes. You must note and underline my special notes. First, the first one claims ownership. They are my special notes. So whatever you hear, whatever views you hear in this special episode are my thoughts. That's why I emphasize my. I call them special because of the nature of reception. A good percentage will say yes. Another percentage will say no. So they are special in the nature that they allow free analysis. They allow free opinion from you, depending on which side of the coin you stand. So, welcome to my special notes. It's morning in Kampala, so I can say this morning. It's evening elsewhere, so I can say this evening. In Kampala specifically, this morning, you're feeling whatever time zone you have, depending on where you live now. As usual, my flagship is Sir Simon Muyanga Lutaya. I have read from an online blog in Uganda called Kampala Express, a viral story, I should say, circulating widely over the last 4 or 5 days and attracting attention and debate, approval and disapproval in equal measure from Ugandans here. And because I said this is special, I've thought like sharing my special thoughts about this blog. An author who is not identified in Kampala Express writes about an action by our friends in the National Unity Platform, NUP, a registered and leading opposition political party in Uganda. NUP supporters of the UK chapter protesting first the recruitment and continued training of Private Ruhamia Kainerugaba at the Royal Military Academy in Sandhurst. According to Kampala Express, Ugandans living in the United Kingdom are not happy with the British's opportunities to the Kaguta family, and they accuse the Sandhurst Military Academy of training. What they have said, 3 generations of evil military power. 3 generations of evil military power. I've been trying to examine the generations and I only noted 2. Yoweri Kaguta Museveni was never at Sandhurst. At least according to reports and his own accounts, his military training was ad hoc, not formal. He's a man who got courage from a civil life to grab guns, start doing his own training, and maybe got elementary shape up from Mozambique, the Forenasa group. Mr. Museveni has not explained to us clearly how he became a soldier. All we know is that he became a rebel. And all he says that after the rigging of 1980 elections, he chose to overthrow the government of Mito Robote, of Amin and the others. He does not state whether he first acquired military training to do so. He only tells us stories after. So he's a gorilla. I think gorillas don't get military training before they join their wars. They simply get there and start running on job. I have not read any text that explains how Mr. Museveni acquired knowledge of operating a gun and from who. But I think he must have got it from somebody. How could someone start believing in a gun, even plan to grab guns from government artillery, armory, to start his kind of training? So he got training not from Sandhurst, that I can confirm. So if you talk about generations, the Museveni generations, you're talking about first Muhoozi's generation and now Private Ruhamia's generation. Those will be 2. The third needs to be investigated. So our brothers in the United Kingdom are accusing the Royal Military Academy of Sandhurst of training Museveni's 3 generation of evil military power. The group also accuses Mr. Museveni and his government of gross violations of human rights. I am speaking with a lot of care. First, to elicit your thoughts, and number 2, to provoke the investigative man in you to have a critical look at the statements made before you draw inferences. So, Private Ruhamia Kainerugaba would spend 44 weeks at the Royal Military Academy in Sandhurst training to become a cadet. His father, Muhoozi Kainerugaba, lived in Sandhurst between 1999 to 2000. That's around 27 years ago, to train to become the cadet he was then, and I think as a stepping stone to the general he is now. Those are the facts of the story. I am quoting what Kampala Express, a blog here, one of the most popular blog here, writes. First, I was told that the Kampala Express blog was owned by Muhoozi supporters. Somebody made me believe so. I do not know exactly who owns Kampala Express. And it appears that it's not hosted in Uganda. It's called Kampala Express, something outside here. But somebody told me it is owned by not Muhoozi himself, but by his loyalists. Now, I've held that view for long, until yesterday, when I read their story and believed that it cannot be owned by Muhoozi himself or his loyalists, and then write so hard content like this, something that appears to be provoking Muhoozi directly and Mr. Museveni. Against that background, I want to attract to examine the way we live and plan our country. The concept of peaceful existence or peaceful coexistence, harmonious living, and our level of accommodating each other, tolerating decent voices and decent views, that those in opposition accuse M7 of, but also fail to practice. Uganda's opposition preaches, and has always done so, that Mr. Museveni is intolerant to the opposition here. Of course, going by the word itself, no government I know of loves the opposition. Just like no human being loves to be opposed. But to some extent, in societies that are civil and developed, they accept and agree that you must coexist to live. The people who do not agree with you have an equal right to live the same way you have that right to disagree with what they do. So Mr. Museveni, to us, is one of the most tolerant leaders in our history. Tactfully so, and in comparison with several other leaders of his caliber and time, Museveni stands out strong as a very tolerant leader. That's to those who objectively view him and those who follow him. Those who oppose him say he's very intolerant and dangerous to those who oppose him. I have no side on that, because I said you view Museveni depending on where you stand, you view Museveni depending on your own orientation, you view him depending on what you do. If politics of hatred and politics of malice is part of what you do, then you can never appreciate Mr. Museveni. But if your politics is progressive and your politics is objective, you'll agree that Mr. Museveni is a tolerant leader. My point is, those who accuse Museveni of intolerance fail to practice tolerance to extents that challenge his intolerance. Otherwise, if you are also intolerant, the same way Museveni is, the way you claim, then both of you are equal. It will only make sense if you practice tolerance against his intolerance. And his intolerance will haunt him, drawing examples from you who are tolerant. I am one of those who have lived in Uganda and spent 20 years of my political career opposing Mr. Museveni and praying that he leaves Uganda until the time when I started looking at his actions critically and understanding what it means to run a government. At the time I was opposing Mr. Museveni as a young man growing up, it was mere excitement and desire to see another leader. I mean, I said, I have read news as a news anchor for so many years, and every time I'm reading the president of Uganda, it becomes automatic that the next name to say is Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. I'm like, will I ever have a chance to read and say the president of Uganda, His Excellency someone else? And for all the years I spent as a news anchor, I did not get that opportunity, and I do not hope to get that opportunity, because even when the government changes, I will not be a news anchor. I have retired from that particular area of profession. So, it is troubling that our friends in the National Unity Platform who live and dine with Mr. Museveni and his government continue to hoodwink the world that they are against Museveni and exhibit character that shows intolerance and promises havoc, promises war, promises, I believe it should be intergenerational hatred to the Museveni family. And I want to pick your thoughts in examining, first, Museveni's alleged evil military power. What is evil in Museveni's military power? Has Museveni used his military power to kill people? The way you would accuse the Interahamwes and the others of the war, of the genocide in Rwanda? Has Museveni used his military power, might, and position to cause mayhem to our neighboring countries? Has Museveni used his military power to kill Ugandans in what one would call extrajudicial killing, state-sponsored murders? Has Museveni, other than the 1980 war in Luwero, where it's alleged that around 800,000 Ugandans lost lives in that war, from the times we claim to be stable, or we understand to be stable, are there any other deaths that have happened in Uganda that are linked to the state? We have had assassinations in Kampala of prominent people. The Sheikh Sekimpis, the Muhammad Chigundu, the Andrew Kawesi, and the others. there were those murders. One would think that the government in power orchestrated those murders to kill its opponent, to eliminate its opponents. But we have proved that those killings were not state-sponsored. In fact, the state has put its own power and machinery to investigate and find out who are the culprits, who actually sponsored or carried out those murders. No one can claim that Museveni's government or machineries in his government killed Andrew Felix Kaweesi, attempted to kill General Katumba Wamala, killed uh, my brother Hassan Chidia, or killed Dr. Abdulkadir Muwaya. Government has stated that these were rebel acts of rebellion from those opposed to this government. So when somebody writes and says 3 generations of evil military power, we must examine what are these dots of military power that we say are evil. Are we right and justified when we say Museveni's military power, okay, Museveni's military leadership over the last 40 years has been evil, or there have been acts of evil in Museveni's reign that may not be state-sponsored? I have pain every day about the many young men and women who are political supporters of the National Unity Platform who are rotting in prisons in Uganda because of their political dissent or alleged crimes. Because these are politicians, we have summed it up to say they are political prisoners. They are prisoners of political conscience. They are imprisoned because they believe in a different line of thinking. And then I keep asking myself, if our supporters in the diaspora, the UK chapter for this case now, write such acts of hatred against the Museveni family, but they expect the Museveni regime to have mercy and release their colleagues in Uganda. I think that's I believe is overestimating one's importance and contradicting oneself. You know, you have the numbers of political prisoners you have said. Some say 50, 40, 20, 1,000. The other day, Joel Senyu was saying over 1,000 NUP supporters are in prisons all across the country. And so, you want a government to listen, be accommodative, and give those people freedom to live and exercise their political conscience the way you have choice. And then, your branch in the United Kingdom is telling the British government to help them to remove this government here. To me, I think we are doing a disservice to our brothers in prisons, because we think that by whatever means you have attempted to have them regain their freedom, you have failed. The only option left to have Alex Mufumbiro, my brother, to have Eddie Mutwe, Bobby Young, my sister Doreen Kaij and others out of prison is through dialogue. I do not want to say through the legal system. I have no faith whatsoever that this legal system that I've seen over the years can exercise independent discretion to have these people granted freedom. So the only option left, and what I expect an sane person to do, is to prevail over Mr. Museveni and government and whatever institutions, the law enforcement agencies, to allow these young people an opportunity to live again by pardoning them. I do not want to be on record to say they are innocent. No. Because they are either guilty or innocent depending on who held them. They can be guilty depending on who wants them to be guilty. They can also be innocent if the powers that be choose that they be innocent. Now, when you start tormenting the Museveni family and you start staging demonstrations in the UK that are not even witch hunting Museveni himself, not his son Muhoozi and Rugaba, who now has a basement, like you say, but you also want to extend your hatred through the first Museveni generation, the Muhoozi and Rugaba generation, now to go to the Ruhamia generation. That seed of hatred you are sowing may outlive you. It cannot be the same you who is asking or praying that Mr. Museveni exercises his discretion, political lenience, to pardon your brothers rotting in prisons here, but you are also paying him in return by tormenting his grandson in Sandhurst. If that's what politics mean, if those actions define political struggles in our country, then maybe I'll be written off as one person who is not political. That's not the politics I understand. Because as a country struggles to achieve a US dollars 500 billion GDP by 2040, I believe it is the interest of every objective Ugandan to exercise such discretion that promotes that, because the benefits of it are for us all. Now, if one writes a member of a political party in Uganda, registered, with millions of supporters here who are freely walking and exercise their political rights in Uganda, writes and circulates articles claiming that the Museveni government is a pain over the last 3 decades that they have defined as military evil, military power, then you are not helping the $500 billion dream. There are many people who want to come and work with us, invest here, that you discourage. There's our friends in the diaspora tend to show that this country is bleeding, this country is collapsing, that Uganda is a failed state, but they still call it home. They call it a failed state, but still want to come and invest here. When you talk to them, they say, I want to do this, I want to go and invest in Uganda, I want to return home. You call it home in 1 minute, and then call it a failed state in another minute. Sometimes it becomes hard to comprehend these issues. What is Ruhamia's role in the alleged evil military power by the Museveni's government? A man who was not born when Museveni became president of Uganda, a man who has not had an active role in governance, a young man who has no particular connection, who has not made any such statement casting hatred to NUP, a young man who is simply picking inspiration from his grandfather and his father to join a profession that he has admired, not from his own making, but from the fact, the natural fact, that his father and his grandfather belong to a profession. He has witnessed from close range in his home, in his house, and grown in that environment, that my daughter, Kezia Tundu, gets inspiration to become a journalist because he sees me doing that every day. Her choice is influenced by the regular closeness to me, and says, this is what daddy does. When I grow up, I want to be a journalist. Why would you incriminate or punish such a soul when you also wish that your children become what you are and do even better? My children know that I remind them every day to be better than me. I remind them every day. Every time I get to opportunity to talk to my daughters, I have chosen that I will remind them that be better. I want my daughter to be a better journalist beyond Ugandan borders, to international borders. I envisage a day I will see my daughter or son on CNN or BBC or Al Jazeera. And so it's my belief that Ruhamia Kainerugaba has only chosen to become a soldier, and a professional at that, because of the immense inspiration in his father's house, in his grandfather's house. The stories of liberation by his grandfather that are told to us through writings are told to Ruhamia physically. Because I believe when Mr. Museveni meets his grandson, these curious children of ours these days will have to ask Jaja, how did you get to become a soldier? How did you get to become president? And the stories that Jaja Museveni tells Ruhamia will appreciate that maybe this grandfather of mine made a sacrifice to a country. He would draw lessons that Museveni has acted for beyond his family, but acting for his nation. And this young man will be inspired to become a soldier just because of that. And he's not the first one. Sudiru Paleria's son, Rajiv, had become a businessman, simply because of inspiration from his father, Sudhir. And many of you have children who are simply telling you, they are promising you that they want to become what you are and even do better. I find it immoral, unbecoming, uncouth, uncultured that our friends want to become leaders tomorrow, that a political party, the National Unity Platform, that seeks to take power in our country, can't go that low, that cheap, that you have chosen to take an assignment to which hand Museveni himself, his son Muhoozi Kainerugaba, and then you extend that hatred to an innocent young man called Ruhamia Kainerugaba. I wouldn't want that for my daughter. I would not want that to happen to my son. And so I do not want that to happen to anybody's son, because the golden rule is that what is good for you is good for others. Do to others what you want them to do unto you. Ruhamia is the United Kingdom. Solomon Kampala, the son of Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu, is also in America. Are you saying that NUP has supporters who can stage protests to have Ruhamia Kainerugaba expelled from the Sandhurst Military Academy? But the National Resistance Movement, or leave alone Museveni's family, or the Banyankole for that matter, have no people who can stage protests to have the United States of America expel Solomon Kampala, the son of Robert Kyagulanyi. Should it be that game that because I fought Museveni, I must fight his son, and if I have failed with his son, I must fight his grandson? If Museveni is a Ugandan, his children are Ugandan. It means that Uganda belongs to all of us. Why would one group want to live there and think that another group should not live in Uganda? There is life for Muhoozi and Ruhamia after Museveni. Museveni will live. If Museveni is 87 years today, and Muhoozi is 52, and will live as long as his father has lived, then Muhoozi has another more than 30 years to live in Uganda. And he cannot guarantee that those 30 years will still be the same. He knows that his father will not be president. Now, if Muhoozi has 30 more years to live, he has to live as long as Museveni has lived, then Ruhamia Kainerugaba has over 50 years to live. If he also lives as long as Museveni has lived. Why would we want to put this family in such a precarious situation for the next 6 or 7 generations to come? Are they worth it? Are we honest when we say Mr. Museveni has been so bad to our country that we don't even have any achievements from him? That you know, I hear people saying abductions and that. Yes, there are abductions and arbitraries in Uganda. The only good thing about these arrests is that you know who has arrested, who they have arrested, where they have taken them, and there is hope that these people will appear. Many of the people arrested here appear in court. Some get bail. There are regimes here and elsewhere where when somebody is picked, you simply dig, they have graves if they are kind enough to return their body to you, or if that one is arrested in that way, you forget them. I want to be on record for my own self and my values, and for the future of my children, to condemn those acts of hatred. I have no problem with anybody fighting Museveni, because Museveni made a choice to subject himself to public life with all its wrongdoings. And so has Muhoozi Kainerugaba chosen. If Muhoozi wants to be president and to lead Uganda, he's aware of the nature of society he wants to lead. He's aware of the character that Ugandans are. By the time he makes a decision to do what he's doing, he has agreed, directly or impliedly, that will agree to that kind of witch hunting. But I would not want to see this done to an innocent man who has not even made a choice to subject himself to public life. Ruhamia. What signal are we sent to this young man that the country where you're born hates you to the extent that even when you get out of Uganda to go and train elsewhere, they will come and stage protests against you? What kind of life have you made for this man at Sandhurst to know that I'm in an institution where I'm doing training, I'm in school, and some Ugandans, fellow Ugandans, have staged a protest to single me out of the whole institution, to stage a protest against me? You mean there are no other children in this military academy born from leaders of other countries who may also not be as good as you claim? Imagine my enemies going to Makerere University to simply stage a protest to have my son or daughter expelled from Makerere University simply because they have issues with me. That to me is unbecoming. And that, I can tell you, that one of the reasons we failed to break through as opposition in Uganda for the 20 years I exercised, I tried to oppose Museveni, is simply we failed to convince Ugandans that they can be safe after Museveni. There are many people, and I have to be on record, who would want to see Museveni out of power. Majority of them are not sure that when Museveni leaves, he will be safe. Now, such acts of these unnecessary protests, you are more evil. Those protests you're talking about are more evil than the evil you claim Museveni's military regime has been. One that which hunts me, which hunts my son, and extends to my grandson is bigger evil than what Museveni has been. I want to publicly condemn the acts of my brothers and sisters in the United Kingdom who say these protests. You need to apologize to us. Do not apologize. Fight Museveni. Take whatever arsenal you have to fight Museveni. Take whatever resource you have to fight Muhoozi Kainerugaba, because these have chosen public to come and serve the public. And when you come to serve the public, you accept its wrongdoings. You know, Muhoozi has a thick skin against you. Museveni has a thick skin against you. These ones have even capacity to fight you, to fight you back. But Ruhamia Kainerugaba, I'm imagining an innocent man in a school outside his country, fought by fellow citizens in the age of his father and grandfather, so to get him out of university, to deny him an opportunity to acquire the much revered, prestigious training at Sandhurst. My view would be that I, Muyanga Rutaya, if I find Ruhamia and Sandhurst, I am only asking myself, can my son or daughter also get the opportunity to train at Sandhurst? If he does, then I would simply want to have this daughter or son of mine train there and say, by the way, when you get there, look for this brother of yours called Ruhamia, so that together you build a future for our country. For us to think that you will fight Museveni by this kind of local and international blackmail, and one that tends to pose, to promise that you will fight them now and in the next generations to come, that because Museveni has hurt you in one or the other, you want to cast your revenge beyond his son, to his grandson, then to their grandsons, great-grandsons, children, is evil. I'm waiting for a statement from the local chapter, and the other is UK chapter, from the National Unity Platform in Uganda. This man, Joel Osenyonyi, our mother, Zedriga, Rubongo, and the others, even Rubongo are trained from outside. Rubongo are trained from, is it Oxford, I think, University, Harvard University School of Law, I think, and graduated there. He posted pictures. We celebrated. He's a Ugandan. Why would Rubongoya's party think that while they have a right to go and train from that Harvard University, Ruhamia Kainerugaba has no right to train from Sandhurst? That is evil. That is cheap. And I believe whoever does that helps Mr. Museveni's government to stay in power, because we have no confidence, we have no belief in faith that the next generation of Museveni will be safe for us. And imagine, even when you do that to Ruhamia, knowing that the Museveni regime that you're calling evil here has all the capacity, power, arsenals, resources to pay you back here, but also picking your own children here. They have not done that. The restraint they do in accepting even the evil you tell them, it should be the same that you exercise in treating their people. I cannot be party to that, because I know Ruhamia may land on my daughter tomorrow for a wife, or my daughter may land on Ruhamia's brother for a husband. They are all Ugandans living here with equal right to belong to this country, with equal right to grab any opportunity, to partake of any opportunities available locally and internationally for God in my country. Nze Simon Muyanga Lutaya.